Hello, music fans. It's Brendan here from Death by Unicorn, a YouTube channel where I talk about metal, rock, and prog music. And today it's an exciting video because I'm going to talk about my 25 favorite albums of all time. I don't think I've ever done a video on this topic. For this list, I'm going to limit it to one album per artist, because otherwise there might be some artists that would have like 4 albums in it. And without further ado, let's jump in. Or I guess I should say most of these are going to be prog metal. So if you like prog metal, you've come to the right place, but there are some other genres mixed in there. I want to start off first with Mesmerized by System of a Down at number 25. This is the 4th album by this American band. It's alternative metal. And this was the first metal band that I got into, so it holds a special place in my heart, and this is my favorite album by them, but I like all their albums. And this is part of there's kind of 2 albums that came out in the same year, and its counterpart is called Hypnotized, and they flow really together from start to finish, as they both have the Soldier Sides theme that starts this album and that ends the album Hypnotize. And this band is very unique sounding. They use a lot of vocal harmonies. Some people call them nu metal, but they don't really do much rap, although maybe there's a little bit of rap influence here and there. Lots of cool guitar riffing and drop tunings, and just really fun and silly, jokey lyrics. It's a really fun listen. Definitely recommend you check it out. System of a Down, Mesmerize. Number 24, I have No Spoon with Opus. This just came out last year in 2023 and was my number 2 album of the year. This is a debut album by this American band, and it's prog metal. It's a concept album. If you're a fan of bands like Dream Theater and Haken, and you like Dream Theater's Scenes from a Memory or Haken's Aquarius and things like that, I think you will love this, so check it out. That's No Spoon and their album Opus. Number 23, Others by No One and their album Book 2, Where Stories Come From. Another concept album here. It's progressive metal. I don't know the story for sure, but I could tell it's a concept album when there's all these like chapters in it, and it actually continues the concept, I think, from Book 1, which is their debut album. This is the 2nd album by Others by No One, an American band. They're really great. Prog metal, check it out. Others by No One, Book 2, Where Stories Come From. Number 22, I have The Contortionist with Language, another prog metal album. The 3rd album by this American band. And on this one, they start to go a little softer than what they were doing before. Like their earlier albums had a bit more of a technical death metal edge to them. This still has some harsh vocals, but is very much more focused on clean vocals. And the vocals are great. The guitar parts are great. The way the album flows are great. Seeing it live also helps. I've seen the band perform live, and they're just an amazing band live. That's The Contortionist and their album Language. Number 21, I have Xanthocroid with Of Earth and Accent Act 2 from 2017. This is, I think, the only black metal album on my list. This is very cinematic black metal. It's kind of progressive. It's their 3rd album. They're an American band. It was hard for me to pick which of their albums to include because I love all of them pretty close to equally, but I gave this one the edge because this is the one where I'm in the choir, the guest choir, fan choir on here for Through Caverns Old and Yawning. So that makes it a special album for me. Really love it. This is a lot of clean vocals for black metal, a lot of kind of medieval sounding folky passages, male and female, clean vocals, but also those black metal shrieks, so you have to be ready for those too. And Xanthocroid with Of Earth and Accent Act 2 from 2017. Number 20 is Thank You Scientist with Maps of Non-Existent Places from 2014. This is more at the prog rock side. This is, I guess, the first album on the list that I wouldn't call metal. It's the debut album by this American band. They have a lot of jazz fusion influences. They have horns. The vocals kind of sound like Coheed and Cambria style, that kind of like emo pop punk style vocals, but over progressive rock music with horns and jazz. Really amazing guitar playing, really amazing compositions, just a great album. And every album that they put out is awesome, so it's hard to pick a favorite, but I'll go with the debut because it's got a special charm to it. Number 19 is the Mathcore album on my list, and it's probably just the best Mathcore album there is by the best Mathcore band. Dillinger Escape Plan Ironworks from 2007, the third album by this American band, and this band is not easy listening. It's probably the most difficult listening on the list, I think. Very chaotic, spastic, just the rhythms are off the wall and confusing and really hard to wrap your head around. They almost sound random, but there's all sorts of crazy time signatures going on and polyrhythms and changes, and the band can play it perfectly live. They're amazing to see live. They're so energetic. They put on a crazy live show, almost borderline dangerous, sometimes with like fire breathing and crowd surfing and throwing instruments and running on the crowd's heads. So maybe a risky band to see live, but really fun and exciting. Dillinger Escape Plan Ironworks is a great album. Number 18, Tool with 10,000 Days from 2005. This is prog metal. It's got that alternative metal influence as well. So fans of System of a Down might like this, or Deftones. But then it's also pretty progressive for fans of King Crimson. Lots of King Crimson influence on here, and also kind of just psychedelic, spacey, ambient, atmospheric, like hypnotic kind of sounds to this. The Tool has a lot of very bass-led music, so the bass parts take a lead a lot of the time. The drumming is crazy. Just everything on here is awesome. The vocals, Maynard's one of my favorite vocalists, maybe my second favorite vocalist at the moment. Just really, really awesome. My favorite track on here is Vicarious. That's Tool with 10,000 Days at number 18. Number 17 is the oldest album on my list. I'm going back to a classic from 1969, and it's probably the most easy listening album on my list and the most likely album on my list to feature on like publications like Rolling Stones and their top 100 albums. It's the Beatles with Abbey Road. Really awesome album. Their 11th album, of course, they're the legendary British band that became a worldwide sensation. Side 2 of this album has a whole medley of songs that all flow together. Very influential on the development of progressive rock, even though they are not necessarily considered a progressive rock band. They kind of are like the first ones that really started pushing boundaries with rock music in the studio and how it can be written, how it can be produced, and throwing out the rule book and saying there are no rules. Beatles, Abbey Road, great album. Next up at number 16, I have Devin Townsend with Empath from 2019. I love a lot of Devin Townsend albums, so it's actually kind of hard to pick which Devin Townsend album to put on here. But I think this one's a great summary of his career, as it kind of features a lot of the different sounds that he can make. There's really heavy songs on here, But then there's also very catchy like pop songs on here. There's like orchestral bits, and then there's like prog epic. So it's got the metal, it's got the prog, it's got the pop, it's got the kind of classical. Oh, and this I have the deluxe version here, so it has a second disc with a bunch of demos as well, which is really awesome to have. Even Devin Townsend's demos are better than a lot of bands' best albums. Devin is a musical shapeshifter and can pretty much play in any style. Started out his career with Steve Vai doing vocals on the Steve Vai album, then went into an extreme metal band called Strapping Young Lad. Then he went solo and kind of went all over the map, mostly progressive metal, progressive rock, but he's made like ambient albums, country albums, and just all sorts of different sounds. Devin Townsend, Empath, check it out. At number 15, I've got a progressive death metal album from 2005. It's Opeth with Ghost Reveries. And this is the 8th album by this Swedish band. I think they're the only Swedish band on my list. Probably my favorite Swedish band, although there's lots of other good Swedish bands as well. This opens up with Ghosts of Perdition, which is my favorite track on here, probably my favorite Opeth track. It just like immediately punches you in the face with a brutal death growl. But then there's also a lot of beautiful singing on here, a lot of really progressive stuff. I think this is the best mix of Opeth's death metal era and their prog rock era. It kind of combines those two styles the best out of all their albums for me. Although a lot of other ones come close, like Watershed's really great. Of course, Blackwater Park is amazing. I could have picked that or even Still Life or Deliverance. But I had to pick Ghost Reveries for my Opeth pick. That's number 15. Running out of places to put these CDs as I set them down. Number 14, Periphery, with their self-titled debut album from 2010. It's progressive metal, it's djent, and it's probably the album that really popularized the djent movement. Meshuggah started this sound. Sixth was probably the next major band to kind of have a djent sound, but Periphery really took that sound, ran with it, made it popular. Them, along with Animals as Leaders, Tesseract. Just a really great album. The guitar riffs are amazing. When I heard this, it blew my mind. The rhythms, I hadn't heard any djent before. I hadn't heard Meshuggah or Sixth before I heard this. So this was the first kind of djent style rhythms that I heard, and I was just like, oh my God, what is this? How do they play these rhythms? What's going on? So much syncopation. I don't even know how to count this. But now I've kind of wrapped my head around it after listening to a lot of other djent music. I kind of understand it better now, but I still get that magical feeling when I listen to it of my mind being blown. That's Periphery and their self-titled album. Good mix of harsh vocals and clean vocals here. Clean vocals have a little bit of that emo flair to them. Number 13 is Avenged Sevenfold and their self-titled album. I was tempted to pick Life is But a Dream here, their latest album from last year, which was my favorite album of the year. It's in contention to be my favorite album from them, but there's something magical about their self-titled. It's more accessible. Life is But a Dream is their most progressive album and is their most like wacky and out there. But this album, their self-titled album, is a lot more accessible, but it is still adventurous and exciting and has a lot of variety. Like they have the country song, Dear God. They have the evil Broadway show tunes track, A Little Piece of Heaven. They've got Lost that features like some auto-tune poppy vocals in the chorus. Gunslinger has a little bit of a country western vibe to it before it picks up into heavy metal. The album is mostly a heavy metal album from 2007, their fourth album. But yeah, heavy metal, pop, prog, classical, country, all mixed together. Really great mix. And all the songs are just catchy. The guitar solos are amazing. Gotta love Avenged Sevenfold and their self-titled album. Next up at number 12 is, I think, the second oldest album on this list. It's an album from 1981. So most of my list, I think, is from the 2000s. That's just kind of where most of the albums that I love are from. But this one's from 81, and it's a Canadian band, their eighth album. It's Rush, Moving Pictures. And this, I consider it more progressive rock. But there's also a lot of like catchy radio hits, so it's pretty accessible with songs like Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, and Limelight that are played on the radio. Even the instrumental YYZ is played on the radio. And then the second side of this album features more of the deep cuts, which are also great. The Camera Eye, Witch Hunt, and Vital Signs. Just a great album. My favorite album of the 80s, my favorite Rush album. Love this three-piece Canadian band, bass, guitar, and drums. Geddy Lee somehow managing to sing, play bass, and keyboards all at the same time, which is mind-blowing, but he pulls it off live as well if you watch some videos of him doing it. Pretty impressive stuff. Every player in this band is just phenomenal. Rush and Moving Pictures at number 12. Number 11, Symphony X with Paradise Lost from 2007. This is progressive metal with a lot of power metal influence, also like symphonic and orchestral classical music mixed in there. This is the seventh album by this American band. Michael Romeo is the mastermind behind this. He's a guitar player, amazing riffs, amazing guitar solos. The riffs are like heavy, like Judas Priest painkiller style riffs that just punch you in the face. And then the solos are like neoclassical Yngwie Malmsteen shredding. Love this album, love how it flows. I think my favorite track on here would be Eve of Seduction. So check it out. That's Symphony X with Paradise Lost. Number 10, Art by Numbers and their album Reticence, the musical from 2012. This is progressive metal. Also, like Symphony X, has a bit of like neoclassical flair in the way they play guitar. Lots of arpeggios, sweep picking, finger tapping, just very busy guitars the whole time. I believe the guitar players were taught by AJ Minette from the Human Abstract, another band that I love. And this is their debut album, and it's their only album. Unfortunately, this band disbanded, so it's a one and done, but it's really great. Art by Numbers, Reticence, the musical. I think one or maybe two or some members from this went on to a band called Artificial Language, which is also an awesome band. But something about this Art by Numbers debut album is special. I like it better than the Artificial Language stuff, even though I love that Artificial Language music as well. Check it out, Art by Numbers, Reticence the Musical from 2012. Number 9 is an Australian band, and it's another debut album. I had a hard time deciding which album from this band to include. It's Caligula's Horse, so I went with the debut, Moments from Ephemeral City from 2011. It's progressive metal, pretty much all clean vocals, amazing guitar, amazing vocals, amazing compositions. Another band who I've seen live and is amazing live. All their albums are masterpieces, and really every album I'm talking about today is a masterpiece. So, and they're all so close to each other, it's kind of hard to put them in an order. But for today, I'm putting this at number 9. Check it out. That's Caligula's Horse, Moments from Ephemeral City. Number 8 is a Canadian band, another debut album. A lot of debut albums on my list because there's something magical about when a band just gets it right away. This is Today I Caught the Plague and Lore. It's also progressive metal. This one, it's all clean vocals, no screaming. Their EP before this had some harsh vocals, but they leaned into screaming or leaned into clean vocals without screaming, but it's very intense clean vocals, very like operatic, powerful, and like belted, and the vocals sound like no one else. Just amazing. I wish this band could get back together with this vocalist, and that would just be something special. I've seen them live many times, and they put on a great show. Check out Today I Caught the Plague Lore. They since changed their name to The Kindred. They put out one album as The Kindred and then a couple of EPs. The EPs that they put out after their first album as The Kindred unfortunately have a different vocalist who just didn't resonate with me as much. He's fine, but they lost the magic, I think, when the vocalist left, and then they haven't put out anything since. It's been a while. Number 7, I have another one and done, perhaps the best one and done band for me, which is Native Construct and Quiet World from 2015. Progressive metal. Just a great debut album, an American band. Very quirky for fans of Between the Buried and Me. There's harsh vocals on here, mostly clean vocals. There's singing that sounds like Queen, singing that sounds like Tommy Rogers from Between the Buried and Me, screaming. Just amazing compositions. Like you can tell these are musicians. They know what they're doing. Really impressive stuff. Native Construct, Quiet World. Number 6, Tesseract, Altered State. This is from 2013. It's another progressive metal one, kind of gent sounding. This one's all clean vocals, unlike Periphery. They really leaned into clean vocals on this album. I think this is their only album that doesn't have any screams. Most of their other albums have a little bit. This is their only album not to feature vocalist Daniel Tompkins. Don't get me wrong, Daniel Tompkins is an amazing vocalist, but there's something special about Ash O'Hara, his vocal performance on this album. Really love it. Tesseract, Altered State from 2013. Check it out. Number 5, The Human Abstract, Digital Veil. Another progressive metal album, kind of on the progressive metalcore side. Very like neoclassical shredding guitar playing, sweep picking, tapping, crazy riffs. The third album by this American band, and their first album, Nocturne, is also great and something I considered for this list, but their third is really my favorite. After their first album, AJ Minette, their guitar player, left the band, so he wasn't on the second album, but for the third album, he came back. I think he's the magic ingredient to this band. His guitar playing is just really amazing. But the whole band is on fire on this album. Just great work from everybody. My favorite track is Antebellum, but I also love Faust and Patterns. At number 4, I have one that I'm going to show on vinyl. I have this on CD too, but I don't have a case for it. So I'm going to show the vinyl. Haken, Aquarius. My 4th favorite album of all time. Debut album by this band from the UK from 2010. Great prog metal for fans of Dream Theater. This is a concept album about a mermaid discovered by a fisherman and sold to a circus, and the blood of the mermaid is the only thing capable of saving the human race from a flood. So very interesting concept, a bit hard to follow, but the songs are amazing. My favorite track is Celestial Elixir. I also love Aquarium and Point of No Return. Number 3, Dream Theater, Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory from 1999. This is progressive metal. I'd say it's probably like the definitive progressive metal album. If someone was like, what is progressive metal? I'd probably hand them this to like define the genre. They're the definitive band for progressive metal as well, I'd say. And this is their 5th album. It's also a concept album about a man named Nicholas going through past life regression therapy in a hypnotic trance induced by his hypnotherapist. He sees the life of a girl named Victoria. He learns that she was murdered and that he was her in a past life, and he uncovers the circumstances of her murder. My favorite track is Fatal Tragedy. I also love A Strange Deja Vu and The Dance of Eternity. which is the instrumental track with all those time signature changes. At number 2, I have Between the Buried and Me with Colors. This is from 2007. It's progressive metalcore. It's got some technical death metal influences in there too. Fourth album by this American band. And when I first heard this album, the harsh vocals were still a bit too intense for my taste, but I just love the guitar playing. I love the compositions and the clean vocal sections. As a guitarist, this is just a very inspiring band. These songs are really hard to play. I don't even bother. It's just way too hard for me, but it's very impressive to listen to. And now, as I've listened to it more, I've grown to love both the harsh and clean vocals. I've heard from some people that this is a concept album, but I'm pretty sure there's no narrative story or anything like that, but there might be some common lyrical themes on here. My favorite track is White Walls, but I also love Ants of the Sky. Really just every song on here is a masterpiece. It's amazing how the album flows like one long song. I love how it starts off soft and then gets heavy pretty quickly. I especially love how Viridian flows into White Walls. Just amazing, amazing album. Colors by Between the Buried and Me. And then my number 1 has a special place in my heart because it's the first prog metal album that I fell in love with and that got me into progressive metal and metalcore music. It's a debut album by a Canadian band. It's Protest the Hero with Kazaya. And this is progressive metalcore, but it's very unique. They don't sound like any other progressive metal or progressive metalcore band. They've got some skate punk influence with that punk drum beat, that kind of punk attitude to them. Some post-hardcore and emo style singing from time to time. Also mathcore influences. And other than, at the time I heard this, other than System of a Down and some songs by Linkin Park, I wasn't really into any music that had harsh vocals. I didn't really like harsh vocals until I got used to them through System of a Down and Protest the Hero's Kazaya. They really got me to accept that style of vocal. What really blew my mind as a guitar player here was just the guitar playing on this album, the compositions, the song structures, the time signatures and tempo changes. I love all the different vocal styles on here, the use of many different vocalists. I think everyone in the band, there's like gang vocals, there's singing, emo singing, poppy, catchy singing, kind of more metal singing, screaming, vocal harmonies. There's a female guest vocalist, Jada Kelly, that comes in at certain points to voice the title character, Kazaya. I know the vocals on this album aren't going to be for everyone. That'll probably be most people's main sticking point with this, but I love them. I love everything about it. Lyrically, it's a concept album in 4 parts where the first 3 parts are told from a different character's perspective, telling the story of an execution of a woman named Kazaya. Part 1's told from the prison priest's perspective, part 2 from the prison guard's perspective, and then part 3 from Kazaya's perspective. And then part 4 is just the finale. My favorite track on here is The Divine Suicide of K, but I also love A Plateful of Our Dead, No Stars Over Bethlehem. Really, I could just name every song on the album because I love every song. They're all masterpieces. That's Protest the Hero, Kazaya. My favorite album, probably biased because it got me into my favorite genre of music, which is progressive metal. So it will hold that special place in my heart forever. And that's it for my 25 favorite albums of all time. Let me know what yours are down below in the comments and what do you think of my list. Hopefully you discovered something new on this list that you want to check out. And if you do check it out, let me know because I love getting people excited about new music, and hopefully you'll discover a new favorite album of yours on here. Maybe before I sign off, I'll quickly shout out a few honorable mentions that just missed the cut. Mastodon, I might pick Emperor of Sand from them. I know maybe Crack the Sky would be the popular choice, and that's probably my second favorite, but I really love Emperor of Sand by Mastodon. It's something special. Pink Floyd, Wish You Were Here, almost made the list. That would have been another older one on here. Just an amazing album, classic prog rock. Leprous, Melina almost made the list. Stephen Wilson, The Raven That Refused to Sing Another Stories, almost made the list. And then Toe Hider, I Have Little to No Memory of These Memories, almost made the list. So those 5 can maybe round off my top 30. There you go. There's 30 album suggestions, and I think I just hit the 30-minute mark too. So 30 albums in 30 minutes. If you haven't heard anything on this list and you like prog metal, these are all must hear. So go check them out and stay tuned for my next video. Peace out.